Hello and welcome, dear viewers, to this brand new episode of your show, The Untold. My name is AlHoli and I'm here with my colleague Hiba Al-Qahtani. How are we doing today?
Well, we're doing great, and hopefully everyone is really excited to know more about today's episode.
Yep, today we get to talk about a very unique subject, a topic that I never think that we mentioned this before on TV. Probably, maybe, but like rarely we get to see this because it's called the TCG, which means trading game cards. So basically, people who collect cards, and these cards can be two things. It's either collectibles, and then they become valuable in price, and and all these kind of things. And also it can be a game. So you can play a game with an opponent, and a lot of cool things
Yes.
out of the TCG.
Yes, indeed. And I'm very sure if you stay with us more, you're going to remember some kind of memories that you actually grow up with in a way in a specific time playing with these cards with our guest engineer, Waleed AlHoli. So stay tuned with us.
Welcome back to the studio, dear viewers, and now we have Mr. Engineer Waleed AlHoli. How are you doing? Welcome to
doing
the
great.
studio.
It's an honor to be here and a pleasure to be here to talk about today's topic.
Yeah, but before we get started with today's topic, talk about yourself. Let us know who are you and what got you into your engineering field, and also then we can talk about the hobby and the collection you have.
Personally, I am what got me into engineering is my love for tinkering and basically discovering different ways different machinery works. Ever since I was young, I would basically take apart everything in the house. I was a nightmare to deal with because I would take it apart and not know how to put it back together. So my mom was like, you know what? I'll let this slide because you might be a good engineer one day. And I was like, okay, I'll keep dismantling the stuff at home.
So it's really quite interesting, is because we always, when we talk about moms, they know best. And especially when it comes into dealing with their kids, they immediately can know what could be, let's say, better for them. So having that said, they always say that engineering is always for complicated people, for the ones who always like to, let's say, read more, have something, let's say, interesting specifically about their life. So do you agree in that kind of, let's say, topic?
To a degree, I do agree about that saying because I personally am someone who loves working in the field. Like, I'm not a desk jockey. I wouldn't sit behind a desk and work all day on a computer or something like that. I'd rather be outside tinkering with cars, machines, electric boards, all of that. And that is basically why I agree with the saying that, yeah, I guess engineers are like that.
Yeah, indeed. So which part of engineering are you like? What are you special?
I'm a mechanical engineer.
Yeah,
So
go figure.
yeah.
Like dealing with car machines and everything.
The best thing about being a mechanical engineer is that all the other fields in engineering rely on the mechanical engineer. So
Right.
I basically get to experience it all.
Oh, amazing.
At least you are enjoying it. So now let's move on to today's topic, which is a very interesting topic. I guess this is the very first time we get to talk about the TCG, which means trading card game. Right. So can you, in a simple way, define what is TCG and, just a brief so that the audience can get to know more about
All right,
today's
so
topic.
TCG is basically, in its name, trading card game, where people would go out, buy a pack that contains a set number of cards, and the cards inside are traded with your friends, your opponents, or maybe a stranger you just met. And it's usually nice to meet new people and share the same hobby with them. And that's what TCG basically is.
Amazing. So before we continue on talking about that topic, I think people would rather to understand more. What do we mean by card games or card gaming? Because people, let's say, for instance, are listening for the term, but they're still not, let's say, connecting to it. So maybe you'd like to elaborate more at the beginning, like what do we mean by card gaming?
Yeah, so card games usually involve two players that go against each other, and based on what game you're playing, there are conditions to win and a bunch of rules you should follow for the game. Most in most cases, the games are not complicated. They're very simple, very easy to understand, and they're very friendly to beginners. So
Yeah.
people usually think that it's an intimidating field, like, I think it's too complicated. I have to learn so many things, but it's mostly just come in and basically do your own thing, play your own way. That's the fun thing about TCG, is that it accommodates for all types of people, and especially card lovers.
Yes, and I think we're holding some cards,
These are
and
valuable cards.
yes,
I guess you're holding
these
like
are the ones that are so closely related to, let's say, the cards that you actually use them for playing, like Visa
Yep,
and stuff.
pretty much.
Like, that valuable, right?
that's why we got this cover. I guess. What do they call these?
These are called PSA slabs. They're basically a company that basically checks for the condition of the card, make sure it's very clean, and give it a ranking based on like how well the card is preserved. So in this case,
based on the ranking, the value goes up and down.
yes. If it's a 10, obviously that means the card is perfect and there's no flaw in the card whatsoever. So that's what is very sought after. And then the numbers keep declining, and you definitely want to get like somewhere up in the high numbers to increase its value, of course.
So hold on. So I'm holding a 10, right?
Yep, it's called the Gem Mint. See,
Right. How much is this worth?
this card you are holding is worth $600 right now in the market. That's like 200 something KD. around
How
that.
about the other one?
The other one, it's like, despite it not being graded, like the card itself without grading is worth 330 KD, if you believe it or not.
So we can we can purchase a card with these two cards, right?
Right.
Keep them
The-
on the
let's say
side.
first
Let's take them.
deposit. From the-
Pretty much.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. Well, talking more about it, let's say, for instance, we've been raised when it comes into different kind of, let's say, animes, talking more about, let's say, Pokemon and Dragon Ball and so on. So people used to always, I used to remember that we used to have that kind of these cards that we used to buy and purchase from specific stores here in Kuwait. And then we used to sit together and just play. And each card resembles something, let's say, adding more power to whatever, let's say, character you're dealing with and so on. So having that said, do we do actually have that still ongoing and with these, let's say, cards, or playing with different kind of cards, because you can say that these are really special cards that are really valuable. I'm not sure that you would keep them, let's say, in the set and playing with them when they're
No,
let's
I don't
say,
think
closed.
you don't play with these, right?
Yeah, like usually the cards with really nice art, people would keep them for collection and for display. You could think of them as like mini artworks that you can keep and display for other people. And the very nice thing about like the trading card community and the people who provide the cards in general
Yes.
is that you may see that this card has very beautiful art, and for some of the players, they might see it and be like, okay, the art is nice, but
Yeah.
hey, this card is pretty powerful. I want to play it, but it's a shame. It's a good card.
Yes.
I can't play it.
Yeah.
That's where they make different arts and different rarities of cards that are very more obtainable and playable. So they accustomed to that too, which is very nice.
So let's talk about mechanics. How do you get to play these games? Okay, now I know we have the fire powers, water power, the weaknesses and, strong parts of each and every card. So let's talk about mechanics.
Yeah, and basically their mechanics for the game are very simple to understand, easy to grasp, and they still do apply where in terms of like, this is a fire Pokemon, you can see that at the bottom it tells you what it's weak against, and if you see, it would usually say water, correct?
Yeah. Weakness, water.
Yep, that means it would take 2 times as much damage from the opponent's attack if they were a water Pokemon.
All right. Nice. So you have to, learn every single card and.
Yeah.
But what if I'm a beginner? And we mentioned that we have a community here in Kuwait, right?
Yeah.
And I want to start. Is it too late for me to, join the community and get to know more about the game and learn and get my whole deck?
Definitely not. There is never a late time to join the community. There's always time for you to come, start, and begin your journey. From the very bottom, it might seem like it's a very grueling task and a difficult one, but it is very easy and very obtainable to basically be a pro player. Usually what we do is first we would welcome the new players, and give them a small introduction on how to play the game by providing them with like a deck to play. And it would usually be a simple deck, simple mechanics. And the fun part about it is that we don't need to tell you what strategies to apply because you would know them immediately. As soon as you see the cards, you will start to see the synergy. You will start to see the strategy that goes on in these cards. Like that's the nice thing about it. It's very simple but very comprehensive at the same time. So it is definitely very beginner friendly.
So do tell us about the beginning. Like, when did you discover yourself into this hobby, and especially when it comes into, let's say, collecting cards? I'm very sure that you had managed to, let's say, have this kind of, let's say, cards from the beginning and start to play with them, maybe at home and somehow with your friends and so.
So my journey started obviously from kids' TV shows. We would see all of these characters on TV doing all sorts of cool stuff. And then we find out, whoa, they have cards of these characters? Mom, please, I need them.
Yeah,
So that's
I
where
can
it
I
started.
remember
To me
that,
as well.
yeah.
So one of my very fondest and earliest memories, it was when my brother gave me my very first card. It's a Dragonite
Let me show it
card.
to the camera. Dragon.
And he gave it to me because he knew I liked this character because it's very powerful in the show and everything. Like, whoa, super cool. And I remember when he gave it to me, he was like, I get to keep your next rare card. But if I give you this, I was totally, definitely scammed because he took most of the
Okay,
cards.
okay.
So, but I was happy and content with this one. And basically that's where it spiraled into a very big collection and a very big hobby for me.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
you
we
want
can
to say
see,
something?
I just wanted to add, like, this is something very amazing. I mean, having a sibling with you that, let's say, support that kind of sense is very beautiful because it's really rare to have that. And though that he scam you in a way, but I mean, that's a way for you to, let's say, reach the point where you actually find your own passion.
And you're still into the game. I remember back in these days, we used to get these cards. I used to
Right.
play these cards with my friends at school, my brother, and it was fun. But we have this moment where we put this aside and move on to a new hobby or whatever that fits your schedule. But for players who are still having these cards and collecting more and more of these cards, and of course we have multiple generations of each set, right? So it continues, and still we have fans of these series or the characters, and of course, and I'm quite sure we have multiple, not only these characters, we have different series. Well, we got characters from different animes, I would say,
Yes,
right? So
definitely.
basically, people get into this collecting card hobby and having it as investing. With that said, when it comes to collecting these cards, what makes it a good investing when it comes to purchasing these cards and not only playing, just keeping it and putting them aside and having them in these containers or packs?
Obviously, the biggest and main point is that these cards go up in value over time because that's when people start to see their value and start to appreciate them more and start to look for them more. And that's why, with the passage of time, it gets increasingly more difficult to find said cards because everyone has either bought them and like kept them and hid them somewhere.
Yes.
From everywhere else. So it gets more difficult, therefore it gets more pricey, it gets more expensive. And the prices are always set by the players and the people in the community, which is very nice because it really brings us all together to agree on something.
And also, I think it depends on the demand of players themselves, because if you focusing more on it and you reaching for a point where you actually want to invest in it, this is where you start to, let's say, have more prices for it. So I'm very sure it's a very interesting topic. We're going to continue more when it comes into that, but dear viewers, we're going to head to a break and then we'll be back.
Welcome back, dear viewers. And now, after the break, I really got excited about the community that we talked about we have here in Kuwait. So, can you tell us about how large is the community? How long have it been for the community? The TCG community in Kuwait.
So the TCG community in Kuwait is fairly large. I'd say like we have a WhatsApp group where we all just chat and trade cards with around 200 people. Some are like even international from the UAE or Saudi Arabia, and we still trade across seas.
Oh, wow.
So it is fairly big. It may seem like a very small number, but if you see at least like 20, 30 people in one place playing a card game, it can get overwhelming because you'd say, whoa, there's a lot of people in
Yeah,
this
a lot of
place.
people, yes. Definitely.
So yeah, it's definitely a big community, even though our numbers may not seem to be that big.
Well, the most important thing is not the amount of people, let's say number, but it's amount of how awareness and how, let's say, people are really interested. It's better to be within a certain number with all people who are really interested in, let's say, card games, instead of, let's say, having a huge number and few people who are really interested. So more of, let's say, having an efficient people that really have that kind of common sense when it comes into finding themselves within these card games. So do tell us more about the community, especially if you want to know more about, because we know there are different kind of type of cards, different kind of, let's say, genres, enemies, and so on. But there are certain type of people who are interested in a certain, let's say, card. For instance, talking more about, we've been mentioning Pokemon, but what about Dragon Ball? Like, I know that this is kind of, let's say, a game that people are really into it, and the fans of it are really big. So is it really true when it comes into even the cards?
Yeah, there is a Dragon Ball card community also in Kuwait. Like, we play most card games that could cross your mind. Not just like the simple ones from animes or from cartoons, but different varieties from other creators who have played card games and have made their own card games.
Well, that's really interesting. Now
Yeah.
you're showing a point that it's not only focused about specific, let's say, things that we've been raised on, but there's also another, let's say, path to it. Like people are really into it in that matter of sense.
People do make their own card games, and some of them like pick up in popularity because the game mechanics are so fun, so fresh, and so new, because these are people who have played the original games that were made for us
Yes.
and have found different ways to make them more exciting and more fun.
Interesting.
So, as a hobby, I have this question that pops up just right now. So, basically, I know there's a way, and I have this game. I actually play it on my PC, and it's a card game. However, it's digital. Like you play with the cards, and then digital. You get to collect the cards. You can actually pay to get more cards. So basically, same thing, but it's not an actual card. It's not a physical copy of a card. So, what's the difference in your perspective in terms of having these cards with you? You can take them anywhere, or you just play it in a digital way.
To me personally, cards hold sentimental value over maybe like a digital card, because every card has its own memory of when I got it and when I played it, and maybe even when I've won with it. So personally, I like to have all of my cards with me in person because it's more of an endearing collection kind of thing where I get to display all of my glorious victories with my awesome strong cards. And it could be done digitally. There are a lot of online card games of the original card games, but they're not as fun because you don't get to see your opponent, you don't get to chat with them, you don't get to like get to know them if they're new too, which is also like a very fun part of TCGs because you get to meet new people and see new faces every day.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Indeed.
Meeting new people.
Indeed. So collecting cards is something very amazing, and especially when you have that card that everyone wants.
Yeah.
So collecting them within the years, they stay with you. Therefore, you get attached and you feel like there's something really intimate when it comes into, let's say, holding them. And then suddenly you find someone who's really, who wants to really buy them and want to purchase. So you start to be in between, let's say, two sides. Should I, let's say, give the thing that I really cherish and kept within the years, or should I, let's say, give it away or keep it? So tell me more about that kind of sense of feeling. Like, have you faced it during, let's say, your journey in collecting cards?
A lot. I have faced that a lot. Like me personally, I'm like a dragon. I like to hoard my own stash of
Yes.
like collectible cards, and I don't really appreciate sharing. And but I do trade some of my cards. I don't mind that. But it is definitely difficult for me sometimes, especially with my more, endearing cards and more personal cards that I have obtained over the years. Like sometimes you would find like a random card that you could basically find anywhere, and someone just asks for it because they're just missing that card, and I'd be like, no, you have no idea how valuable this card is to me. This thing has gone through this with me. Like, please
Yeah.
don't take it. So yeah, even the most simple and most common of cards could hold sentimental value. So that's why, to me personally, it is a bit difficult for me to trade in the trading card game aspect of the game.
Fair enough. Okay, so as far as I know, like some people think that these games are only for kids, right? And that's why they stopped playing them. Meanwhile, personally, I think it needs skill. You need strategic thinking. I think it's like chess, and maybe with more, you have to know more about the cards. You have to
Practice more, let's say.
practice more, and that's why there is like simulations on the internet that you can play and practice, right? So basically, what do you think regarding improving your decision making, or maybe your skills in improving your
Methods of playing in the cards itself.
definitely and problem solving, during
Of that
time
kind
you
of
play.
situation when you just hit the card and then someone just puts something really higher and you want to just, let's say, save what you're doing with the game itself.
A lot
you
of
know?
decision making here.
Yeah, that's the fun part about like trading card games, because see, personally as an engineer, I love thinking outside the box, and I love strategy, and I love synergy. And that's basically what trading cards bring to the table. Like that's everything I could ask for. The fun part is that everyone could have their own strategy. Everyone could come in with their own set of cards and their own set of synergies and basically play style. And surprisingly, it is always fun and unique every time. And you would also be surprised at how intelligent some of these children could be when it comes to building their own decks, because I have seen it. Like the jaw drop of everyone around me when a child has beaten an adult who is basically a pro with a deck that this kid just thought up and was like, hey, these goofy fun cards could make a fun deck. And
Yeah.
they win with it, despite it like not being very powerful or very well known. But hey, it worked out for him. So that's the fun part. It's always new, always fresh, and always like welcoming of everyone around and all different types of mindsets. It really just accommodates to that.
Amazing. So you just mentioned kids, and I know it's very, very difficult because we have different kind of players who react differently when it comes into winning, accepting winning, or let's say losing.
Yeah.
So do tell us about these kind of, let's say, scenes of emotions that you face in the community, especially when you're really close to a person and then you see him lose. Like I'm very sure, like for instance, I had my sibling, my brother, like every time he loses, he just throws the cards, like just throws the card away and just move on, you know? So do tell us about these kind of, let's say, incidents that happen, especially when it comes into competing and accepting winning or losing.
Yeah, in the TCG community, we really value good sportsmanship. So we don't really have people being over dramatic. They may do it for like an act because they're doing it against their friends, maybe.
Right.
So we usually just have fun. And even if you lose, we usually take these losses with pride and learn from them, because every loss is an opportunity to learn and to improve. So in the TCG community, everyone is a winner because you basically get to play with your friends all day.
Yeah.
And if you win, hey, that's even better. It's more fun.
And even if you lose, you will learn something. So again, a win-win situation.
Win-win
Now,
situation. I like
regarding
that.
winning, losing, and playing against each other, this brings us to having tournaments here in Kuwait, right? Let's talk about that. How long have been we have tournaments, and what kind of tournaments, and how can you like apply for these and games and join them?
Tournaments are very accessible here in Kuwait, and they've been going on for a long time. So there are stores in Kuwait that basically promote and host tournaments on a weekly basis. Like I go to a store that does like my trading card game of Pokemon tournaments twice a week, like Mondays and Thursdays. So
That's active.
yeah, that's basically me going to play every other day, and it's always fun.
Is it always the same people, or you get to see new people every time?
It's a mix of both. Like we get the usual people that we always see on a daily basis. We're basically like friends and family at this rate because we all know each other from seeing each other like every week. It's like a family gathering for us. And we always love having new players come in and people who are interested come in to basically learn about the game because it's a very endearing passion to us and we would love to share it with a lot of people.
And of course, they would love to see more people coming in so that the community will grow, and then they will have more players to play with, right?
Yep, that's basically what we would love to have. Yeah.
Well, that's really amazing. And I think the more awareness spread when it comes into, of course, the community itself, it would show people would like to come and, of course, see it more. But one of the things that's really, I think, terrifying for people is the thing that they do for the first time, you know, like we play cards, we enjoy our time, but it's our first time entering a community. So you always feel that vibe of, even when it comes into, let's say, testing someone with a game, it's really terrifying at the beginning. So do tell us more about that, and especially spreading more of an awareness for the audience is that about their feeling and about that kind of, let's say, sense. It's okay to just come and enjoy.
I have a very fun story, and it's a very close one to my heart because it was such a nice and heartwarming scene for me to see. There were children who came in once and they wanted to learn how to play the game. They were a bit intimidated and they didn't know what was going on. They basically knew nothing about trading card games. They had no idea what these games were. But after they came in, they settled in. It was fairly quickly, and they started to learn the game, grasp the mechanics, and basically see how the cards work. Like, as I said, these kids have never seen these cards, but with a few explanations and just a bit of guidance, they were able to have the fun of their lives. Like, one of the children, she came up to me and she was like, "This is the most fun I've ever had playing cards." And to me, that moment basically stuck with me because I basically helped someone find a new passion.
Amazing.
Let's talk about the age group of the community. This is very important part because now, as we are listening and watching this episode, the audience they're curious. All right, so if I have my kids, me, who is able to join the community and play?
So, in popular belief, you would think that it is mostly kids that show up to these things. It's like a kids card game, but believe it or not, I'm one of the youngest people in the community.
Wow.
Yeah, like there are a lot of adults and older adults too who come to play this game, like that has been with them for years, and they've all have their own very luxurious and beautiful collections too. So they have that to show off to us kids who didn't catch up in time.
That's
Wow.
nice.
And it's really beautiful because, we always have to have that kind of knowledge when it comes into, let's say, people with the expertise and experience. It's something important because if you were all young, it wouldn't, let's say, mean something. But when you have that kind of variety of different age, you're going to gain experience, especially when into, let's say, heading with them in a match, and you will see how they play and you get really, let's say, curious about the method and stuff like that. So, yeah, I do agree. Having that is something very great.
Yeah.
You know what is the youngest age player you have in the community?
I think it's a boy who I think is like 9 years old.
So a 9 years old can play, and also a 30 years old can play.
Yeah, I have
All of us here can play.
I have
He won
an
a tournament
8-year-old.
once. That 9-year-old kid came in
Wow.
with a new play style that no one expected, and he just demolished a bunch of people and won.
That's very nice. All right, so you previously mentioned that the game needs strategic thinking. And can you elaborate and tell us how and why?
So the fun part about every card game is that every card has its own significant meaning and value in play. And that's where you come in, the player, with your own fresh take on how to use this card. And usually you would have like 60 cards in each deck, and all of these cards have to work together perfectly. It may seem like an impossible and daunting task. Like, whoa, how could I make sure that 60 cards are all working in tandem together? And that's easier than it may seem because the game itself is built for you to easily strategize, think, build, and basically play.
And how long does it take actually for a game to, let's say, start and end? Like, does it
That's a
take
good
time?
question. It could end very fast, and it could
Yep.
end.
At
takes
most, it would
long.
take like 15 minutes per game. So it doesn't take long. Like, usually for the game of Pokemon, you have what you call prize cards. You have 6 of them. And your opponent also has 6. So if you defeat 6 of their characters, you win. If they do it first, they win.
Interesting.
And every game have a different way of.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Waleed, for being part of this interview.
That's
It
a
was
pleasure.
wonderful. We get to talk about the TCG, which is very unique, and we don't have. I never seen this on TV before, to be honest. So
Right.
there we go. We have it on KTV too. And yes, we will take this really quick break before we wrap the episode. So stay with us. With that said, dear viewers, we have reached the end of this episode. It was lovely having Waleed with us here today to elaborate and tell us more about the TCG and the community and how to play and how long it takes and all these kind of things that we need to know before, as a beginner, if I want to join the community and play the TCG game.
Yes, indeed. And always remember that it's never too late for you to go and find your passion, enjoy them, where you can follow them, and of course, know more about all of the things when it comes into the TCGs.
Yep. All right. That was it. We hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe and see you again in the next one. Goodbye.